And we are live. How's everybody doing today? This is Nerdarchist Ted from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds, and with me is Nate the
Nathan Nerdarch.
Nerdarch. So, as you can probably see from our title and description, and wherever else you might have seen the link, that we're going to talk some more Starfinder today. Nate and I have been, trying to engross ourselves in these rules and, share our findings with you guys out there.
And it's been a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun reading the book. It's really jam-packed full of stuff.
So where do you want to start, sir?
Let's just go. You want to start with ships, or do you want to start?
Yeah. Absolutely. I actually got more into the ship stuff than I did in the into the spells. So one of the things that I thought was actually really cool, when they talked about space travel, and typically, as with every mythology that gets into space travel, it always starts off that, okay, well, somebody eventually figured out how to do it, and it took, months, years, or generations to get from one place to the next. So, like, they started working on technology to allow for that. But it seemed like that they went in this long, drawn-out story where literally at the same moment, everyone in the universe, or specific people that could handle it, were shared this vision of how to make a particular engine that would allow travel from distant planet to distant planet, through a space or through a plane of existence that could only be accessed through technology called the drift. And the creature that did this was
a great old one.
Was a new god called Triune. Immediately following the signal, the new god Triune revealed itself to the Pack Worlds, claiming to have granted the knowledge as a blessing to its new mortal children. Formerly three minor gods of machines and robots, now networked together into a single entity. The Divine Collective claimed to have peered through the substrata of reality and discovered a previously unknown plane of existence called the Drift. So, as I said, this plane of existence, could only be accessed via technology. And, as it goes on to describe, every time somebody uses an engine to travel through the drift, a like very small section of another world or another plane gets sent about in this emptiness that is the drift. So it's taken travel that could be years or generations down into typically like 5 to 6 days to cross to cross the vast gap of space. But in that 5 to 6 days, you might come across one of these lost or adrift things from another plane of existence. So it's kind of interesting, and it actually says like in granting discovery to the world, Triune became one of the most powerful entities in the multiverse overnight, the new god of interstellar travel. And while the technology involves, the side effect is unknown, though some conspiracy theorists believe that the ever-increasing size of the drift and the corresponding shrinking of other planes of existence is part of the inscrutable power of an inscrutable power play by Triune himself or itself. So I kind of thought that was interesting, and I saw that development like coming about before they actually shared it, because I'm like, oh man, what if they did this totally to be, to grant more power or to get more power.
He's definitely playing the long game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Figure like a little tiny piece gets stuck in the drift. It's like, all right, well, millions and millions and like trillions of space flight later, the drift has a decent amount of stuff in it.
So I'm like, all right, could this have been, some powerful wizard who came upon this secret and is like, oh man, people could worship me if I found a way to just share out this information, and that's how he could become a god. I started going through all different kinds of thoughts of, oh well, how would I play this, or how would this be done if I was creating this aspect in my world? And since it's kind of like out there is open to interpretation, like you could do whatever you wanted at your table. But I'm like, what if the capturing of different worlds, like what if Tryon lives in the drift, and like he's waiting for artifacts to just randomly appear so that he can just collect them as they show up. What if he's looking for some kind of lost knowledge? I'm like, that'd be a perfect way to do it. It's like, it might take forever, but he doesn't have to do the work. It'll just be there eventually, right?
People are volunteering to randomly give him pieces of the world and the multiverse. Yeah, so I would say the conspiracy theory seems warranted, because if he's not going to take advantage of it, maybe somebody else figures out. And it says you're traveling through the drift. Well, what if your stuff breaks while you're in there? You're in there until you fix it, pretty much, right?
Until you fix it. That does that's a solid point.
So it's cool. It's like space has its own Underdark now.
So there's all different kinds of a section on building your starship, and I kind of thought that was interesting, but they kind of correlate your starship as another, not so much a player at the table, but that it is inherent in the game that you have a ship, and that it actually should be appropriately leveling up as the party does. So it's got the APL, or average party level. And with that, it's like, okay, well, if you're, playing with us, okay, you're a 4th level game, so the ship's 4th level. I don't do the split level nonsense not nonsense, but I don't do the split level party like I know some DMs out there do. But here, if the party gains a level, so technically should the ship, and then you have build points that you somehow miraculously get to just apply, and they go into, well, it could be a favor that you owe, or that somebody owes you. It could be something that's salvaged gear, and like this is where things for me went astray from what I would normally do in my game, where it's like, okay, well, at some point in time you would want to find a new ship, or find pieces to upgrade your ship. I don't like the idea that it has to be incorporated with the level. I would want to do it so that you could be above what the level is because you've done things, or because you found stuff. Did you have any opinions on that, Nate?
Oh man, I have to say I was reading chat, to be honest. But are you talking about the starship level being different than the players technically are?
Well, technically they're supposed to be the same level.
Yeah, but if you find like a magic item goodie, or a technomancy item goodie for your ship, that's like part of the. It's like a game where you can upgrade your gun. If they find something cool, they got to put it on. It doesn't, why? Unless there's a level requirement, and that would be like, well, it doesn't fit on this chassis, or it doesn't fit on. You need boosted power cells to be able to shoot this gun more than once during the encounter.
According to my read through, and if there's somebody out there from Paizo or Starfinder, if you want to put it in the comments if I'm somehow wrong, but it sounds like you can't just go and do that. You need to have the build points to quote unquote upgrade the ship.
Okay, well, I would say that's probably for balance purposes, as well as, maybe your engineer isn't up to snuff, so you can't be putting a higher level, higher tiered item and just wiring it in. Maybe you can look at it. You can look at it that way.
It's like, okay, well, what if this is like, oh, well, this thing is powered by undead, or powered by magic, and yours is solely a technocraft. So like I can understand, like, because we'll get into more of the differences of starships later. But to me, like I know a little bit about technology, and there really should be, okay, well, if I cross to this and cross to that, I should be able to connect it, even if I've got to put in some kind of like, power shunt or what have you.
Yes, but what if your new processor you bought can't work with your motherboard? And then you have to change the motherboard, and that means you also have to change the graphics card,
and then the hard drive now doesn't.
yeah, exactly. Now the hard drive needs to be updated. Actually, the new Windows doesn't recognize your crummy hard drive. So from personal experience of building little computers, which are very low complexity compared to a starship, I would say that yes, it can be a giant pain in the butt if you do not have the skill level or the knowledge set required to deal with a piece of technology. It can be complex for reasons that do not logically make sense. So I can see where you can say, well, that's why it's the level gap. If you're not 12th level, you can't have a 12th level ship. I'm not necessarily saying it right, but you get the idea. The 12th tier or whatever ship. Right. So, yeah. What do you mean it's not Radeon compatible? Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Tesmic. Exactly. Oh my gosh, the hours I've spent customizing computers and then realizing I just need to buy more stuff. Oh man, the last workaround I made, I spliced wires to make my power supply work for something. And that was insane. And then I said, nah, this is going too far. I just need to get the power thing. No. And then I just got to go get it. But I'm using money to level up my system. Like, imagine if you couldn't do that and you had to just wait until you understood the next bit.
So everything in Starfinder has a power requirement, and therefore the power of your ship is the most the power supply is the most important thing to get once you've determined your hull size. So it gives you the step-by-step of here's what you should do. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But it goes so far to say, like, if you're playing Starfinder, you have access to a ship. It could be, scrap piles that you've managed to put together and turn it into a thing, or like
crew. Your patron is the guy who really owns it, and you're the crew, kind of thing.
Well, it says that you guys have the ship, and you might owe a ridiculous amount of money to have the ship, and that could be like a part of your quest is, well, you gotta earn money to pay this guy back or what have you. But it's got a number of different reasons that's in there, and of course, you and your GM can always work together to determine what how you got your stuff. But I like the fact that it's like, all right, you got it. You got this figured out. So as I said, yesterday, there's definitely a lot of great artwork that's in here. The different classes of ship. You've got racers, interceptor, fighter, shuttle, light freighter, explorer, transport, destroyer, heavy freighter, bulk freighter, cruiser. Now, once you get into the cruiser size things, like this is where you're basically leading an armada, like because you are so big that you have a fleet that lives inside. So like you're probably not getting something like this until you're up into the high levels, possibly epic level. But if you actually look at some of the ships that fall into this class, like they're just darn right impressive. So let's see.
Now we do have a question in the chat about us acquiring, in quotation marks, a ship that is above your level.
That's probably going to be something you got to work out between you and your GM.
Let's just say you probably can't acquire it if they don't want you to. So yeah, it would definitely be something you work out with the GM.
Oh, and I apparently did not scroll to the next page. After cruiser, there's carrier, battleship, and dreadnought. Dreadnought is the thing that I'm talking about. Like that has a maximum crew of 500 people. So like that's a massive thing. It's got 20 expansion bays. Yeah, pretty crazy. So let's see here. Let's actually get down and share some of the awesome. There we go. So come back to Hangouts, share.
There's just so much to go through in this book. I just stumbled upon the weapons list. And I'm like, oh my
yes,
gosh.
the weapons list is pretty incredible in and of itself.
Yeah, that could be just one episode.
All right, so this is the Exo, Exoin, however you want to pronounce the ship styles, and this is a fleet of ships that's entirely undead.
I'm gonna say Yoxian.
Yoxian?
Yoxian.
Okay. So the Omenbringer, which is this guy, it's literally designed so that there is no atmosphere. So if you come on board without, your own air, you're gonna die because you're literally exposed to space. So like this is literally, powered by magic and undeath. The Omenbringer sails through the void like the corpse of some vast whale, but its organic aesthetics belie the cutting-edge technology of its construction. Within its gullet hangs ranks of Necro Gliders and other fighters, their undead pilots able to stay ready at their stations indefinitely. Without life support on many decks, the ship is very difficult to take down, and big sections, such as the hangars, stand airless and open to space by design.
Space zombies. Ugh.
So the Necro Glider is, this bottom ship here, and it's an undead pilot built into the ship that the ship is wired directly to their brains, so they control it with their thought rather than I'm going to sit there and steer. And then, the one above it, it's another bone ship that is bigger than the Necro Glider, and that red eye is where the cockpit and the cabin is, and it's designed to look like an eerie red eye. I thought that was kind of cool. So we talked about the one race yesterday. Well, this is their ships designed by the Hydra Adre, however you want to pronounce it, and this is their ship. And again, you look at these small little blue lights, but that's really the docking ports for the ships. So this is again another colossal type ship. And this is their they all have similar bird-like designs or bird-like stylings, but these ones use magnetic technology. So like there's literally parts of their ships that are connected by magnetic fields, and the reasons for doing that is some kind of secret that they don't share. The Void Runner, which is this bottom ship, it says few ships can match the speed and maneuverability of the Void Runner, making it the perfect ship for daredevils, elite combat pilots looking to rely on skill rather than heavy arms and armor, and criminals in need of a fast getaway. So then the Packed World ships, you've got the Atech Immortal, and the descriptor on this one says that pretty much it doesn't fire its guns very often, because just showing up to a fight typically ends most battles. The
threat of oblivion stops people from fighting.
The Ringworks Wanderer is the the short range fighter that's what's it? It's called the Star Wasp, just because of the the hornet-like shape and colorings. The Shirin we talked about yesterday, the insect race, and they actually use bioships. So
nice.
These bubbles, well, it's a mix, but a lot of their ship is bio, and what they wind up doing is these little bubbles, they have the ability to like shrink and grow as needed. So they really have the ability to resize themselves to accommodate any cargo, which I thought was kind of cool. There's their their big guns and their Their little drones.
Oh, that Starhive drone is really well designed, I gotta say.
Well, the cool thing about them is the Starhive takes a natural sheer and pride in making sure that each ship iridescent paint job is unique. So I thought that was cool to get into.
I love how they're like the rebels of a hive mind, so they're like really obsessed with themselves.
It is definitely a cool thing. Here we have the Veskarium ship styles, and I was curious at what these were going to look like because I really dug the Vesk, and like to me, I think these guys look like more like the Pact World stuff. It looks a little too utilitarian. I was expecting a little bit more, I don't know, something a little bit more flamboyant when you consider their scale colorings. But this is their Tyrant. This is their colossal ship. Their little starfighters are actually two-man crafts. So the pilot actually, is here in the cockpit looking forward. The gunner is actually behind him, and he's only looking at screens. So I don't, I don't know the let's see, what's the BMC Mauler? It's not there. There we go. So I don't know if it's much better than others or worse, but I would think that it would be problematic for your gunner to not being able to be looking straight, but to be relying on screens. I don't know.
He's just playing a video game in the back. Pretty much.
Oh, that's true. All right, so they are
flying through interstellar space, so
that's true. All right, so that is the core ships that they give you, and I thought it was really interesting that with Star Wars, Star Trek, and so many other insert star movie, TV show, they're always able to come up with unique and interesting designs for the ships. What was your take on that, Nate?
Yeah, I thought they did a good job of, I think, going along the races. I mean, I don't know what you thought for the Vesk, but I thought it looks very like straightforward and militaristic, and for their ships, and I kind of feel like that's appropriate.
I mean, they are more in more militaristic than that, or the.
I mean, it's no Spelljammer dragon. Just out there.
Yeah, I was expecting something different, and it's my perception. So I mean, it's totally what you're saying is totally makes sense. So perhaps I just have a more Vesk look like Dragonborn, not like Lizardmen. So like maybe I was thinking more draconic and therefore more flair, more flamboyant, and it's a misconception. I don't know.
So there's tons of, further down the line, there's tons of charts with all the different types of weapons, like light weapons, heavy weapons. They talk up like the ones that tracked and the ones that are direct fire. They go into all that kind of stuff where, special properties of it and the types of shielding, the shield name and what it does. So, I mean, they've got all that info in there and they're just charts. So I'm not really interested in showing that stuff.
So we wound up missing it yesterday because there was a lot to talk about. So we will do the roll call today. So why don't you guys sound off and let us know where you guys are chiming in from, and then we're going to take a couple minutes and we're going to talk about ship to ship combat. And we're not going to go into all the specifics of it because again, this is a massive rule book, and it would take quite a while to actually get into all the nitty gritty of it. But the one thing that I thought was pretty interesting on it is they actually do combat in phases, and typically it tells you, okay, when you come onto the ship, you're supposed to identify your role right then and there, and you got to be like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and that's it. So your roles, you've got captain, which you can only have one. You have engineer, which you can have as many as you want. You can only have one gunner or gunner team per weapon mount. You have pilot. You can only have one pilot. Only one dude does that. And then you have science officer. And each one has its own set of rules and its own sets of things that it can actually do. It goes into preparing for starship combat, beginning starship combat, and then talks about the rounds and phases. So when you're doing ship-to-ship combat, the first thing that happens, once initiative has been determined, is engineering. Says the engineers on all ships, if present, take an action to repair any starship systems or give them a boost. These actions occur simultaneously, so they can be resolved in any order. Then this is where it begins to be fun and actually tracks a little bit like second edition, because you have the helm phase. Each starship pilot attempts a piloting check. The pilot with the lowest result must move his ship first. So you already get to go into a pecking order of, okay, I move here. Oh, well, since you move there, I'm going to move here. So you can base your action based on what the other person did, which to me, that really harkens back to, second edition initiative. Well, what did you think about that, Nate?
Yeah, I think that's really the only way to do it. Otherwise, there's things that you can kind of ignore on like the miniatures combat level. But when you're talking about like ships with everybody's actions on them, I feel like that's the best way to do it, because otherwise if you had the person with the highest result go first, you'd have them at a disadvantage for being the best, and that just doesn't make any sense.
So everybody makes a piloting check, and you go up the charts in lowest results, and that just takes care of the movement. If you have a tie, you go to the number of ranks. If it's still a tie, you do a roll off until there's not a tie.
Yeah, and I could see people deciding to, like, if they're like, oh man, I know I'm not that good of a pilot, or this person's obviously getting me because they've got a higher roll. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do like some kind of evasive maneuver.
Right.
And I think you select that. Do you do that at the same time?
Yes, you can choose to do maneuvers during your piloting check, and again, that's yet another roll. This is also the part where science officers act. They act before or after the starship's pilot, but they can jointly decide the order that they act. And here's where you have the ability to scan your enemy vessels, target enemy vessels, specific areas. So it gets into all of that. Again, we're not getting into the nitty gritty of what each thing does. Phase 3 is gunnery. During the gunnery phase, gunners fire their starship weapons. Starships fire in the same order in which their pilots acted during that round's helm phase, but the effects of damage are not taken into account until the end of the phase. So what that means is everybody gets to shoot this round. At the end of the round, that's when we know whether your weapons have been disabled, whether you're destroyed, any of that kind of stuff. And then we move on to, back to the beginning.
And I like that because that speaks to the idea that, it's easy, it's quick to press a button, aim and press a button. But because of distances, you could both fire and both be destroyed by something, but you won't know until, everybody's stuff's kind of in the air.
Right.
I mean, even with certain distances, even like light-based weapons. Well, in this case, they don't have lasers. They have arc stuff, right? Do they have lasers? I don't remember. But anyway, I mean, lasers take, they do have a speed. They're not instantaneous.
Right.
Yeah, it's incredibly fast, but it's still a speed.
Right. So, real quick into the roll call, we have Poison in Kuwait, Rhett Bruck in Dallas, Texas, Tesmic in Australia, Lincoln in Sweden, Justin in Tennessee, Joshua in upstate New York, Red Jackal in Florida, Tony from Iowa, Todd Boyce also from Dallas, Beast Geyer in Washington State, Nathan in Missouri, Fates Fiance in West Australia, Kyle in Canada, Mr. Rob's Cleaning Service in Oregon. And it sounds like you guys didn't want to do a whole lot of roll call today. So,
and fluffy Tengu in Michigan.
That one just came in.
Yeah.
So, all right. So back to Starships. I thought doing this, combat phase just sounds so intriguing, and like we only glossed over the complexity of it, and sadly it was one of those things that I just don't think we had the time to really do during the the premiere game that I was lucky enough to be a part of. And he actually let us know ahead of time. It's like, look, we're not doing any kind of ship-to-ship combat, so you don't need to be aware of how this actually transpires.
And that's probably good because it's like a game in the game, is what it feels like to me.
It really is, because you, like, other than a couple skills that are going to come in handy, it's really taking a whole new set of rules and thrusting into this thing that you've already been doing, because there's different forms of movement for your ship. There's different different types of damage. There's all different kinds of things that you can do. There's critical damage for each particular section. Things can glitch and malfunction and stop working. You have the ability to change roles if need be. Oh, well, what happens if there's been damage to the ship and it knocks someone unconscious? Somebody else can step in and actually do stuff.
Star Trek style.
Yeah, absolutely.
Panels and stuff.
So there's quick fixes for engineers. All these different crazy thing that can happen. All the different options for what the science officer has the ability to do. There's teleporting between starships. So like, what happens if like, oh well, you guys are in ship-to-ship combat, but I want to do normal, movement and actions because I'm aboard an enemy vessel. Like that's just going to allow for, combined levels of play. So it's utterly a crazy system, and it allows for all of that to actually, transpire at the same time.
Yeah, I think for the teleporting, they were saying that they have to be stationary. So you couldn't, basically, as long as you're moving, you're safe from teleportation.
Okay.
Because I get, we don't really think about it much, but when you're teleporting in other games, both places aren't moving.
Right.
And I guess that's part of. I mean, I understand they also put it out there as a rule, so that they don't have to deal with people just teleporting onto different people's ships to attack them, like a boarding vessel. So if you disable it and no longer moves, or you can restrain it,
right,
so that you're both stationary, then you can teleport people over. So
Kyle says, how hard would it be to turn an asteroid into a ship in this game? I didn't know how. I didn't read the everything. I mean, there's 500 pages here to look at. So I kind of skimmed through the stuff that we're trying to talk about. Read as in depth as I could. I imagine you could put an engine on anything, in this world. It's just a matter of, I don't know what the structural integrity of an asteroid is.
Their structural integrity is usually pretty bad. They're just kind of loosely held together by gravity in certain situations. So yeah, it's not going to be it. I would say, like, science-wise, no, it's not a good idea. It looks cool, but it's not a good idea to turn an asteroid into a spaceship. But I mean, you can figure it out in your game. Maybe you found a really hard rock, like a planetoid chunk. So yeah, do whatever. I'm sure someone will let you do it.
In the verse, I imagine there's just about everything that's out there. So
yeah, maybe that's how the dwarves get off space, into space. They put an engine inside it and just teleport their whole people. They drift right from the continent they're on into space.
So screw asteroid into a ship, make it a planet-ending missile.
This is big. That's a lot. That's a lot of weight you got to move. Now, redirecting an asteroid that's already on the move, That's a lot easier than taking something that's like circling and around the sun or whatever and shoving in there. So a near miss kind of asteroid, you just have it boop. But anyway, there are spells in this game.
There are indeed. So we, I did not have as much time to look through spells as I would have liked in preparation for said video. But I did find some very interesting things. Nate, you're more our resident wizard. Do you wanna take the lead on this one?
Sure. Yeah, I will. The little screen share action here, as soon as I find it. All right, is people seeing this?
Yeah, Nate, what's up?
Okay, good. All right, I just wanted to make sure. All right, so one cool thing about the spell system that I like is it tells you, unlike other games, recent editions, it tells you who can use it and what level they're at. So Dispel Magic is 3rd level for 2 different classes. And I don't know what these little emojis mean, but I know that they're represented up top here somewhere. Let's see.
They show you the different symbols.
Yeah, they show you in the beginning. So
I believe the purple one is the Mystic, and the other one is the Technomancer.
Yeah, so you're looking at those 2, and there are their spells, and it lets you know what level and who can cast it, which is a really nice reference that I feel like more games should have done. So anyway, one of the nice things about this is it's got the variable spell levels, so they're not filling the book with different level spells that do pretty much the same thing. So here we go. Is Fear is something that you can select at 1st level, and it'll do a 1st level style effect. 2nd level, it'll do a more powerful effect, and so on. And one of them that I wanted to show that I was really happy with. Ooh, sorry, I'm gonna have to speed through this and not speed too far.
Was it Mystic Cure?
Yeah, Mystic Cure was one of the ones I was really happy with, and Planetary Binding is another nice one that it has the different level progression, and it tells you that it's a. The nice thing also is it tells you if it's a variable spell by having this number at the top as well, so you can basically pump it for what you want.
So we will mention while you're trying to find Mystic Cure, the spells only go from 1st to 6th level. So like that's something that it lends some curiosity to, can I not play a wizard in Starfinder? Can I not be a Pathfinder class? Here. So it's a little interesting. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, so for Mystic Cure, it has 1 to 6, and it's Conjuration Healing. So it's normal kind of like, the cure wounds that we all know. And it restores different amounts based on the level. And here it doesn't just, it's like a D8 plus your wisdom modifier, but it bumps up significantly each level. And I feel this is a better example of proportional spell variable, like boosting them, because a 2nd level spell is way more powerful than just simply adding another D8 to your heal. So, and they recognize that, and they've made it 3D8 for a 2nd. Here they've got for 3rd it's 5D8. For 4th, something interesting happens. It just bumps up by 2 plus your wisdom modifier, but then it says, in addition, unlike most healing, when you cast Mystic Cure as a spell of 4th level or higher, you have 2 options to enhance the effect. Now the first is adding extra hit dice of healing. So this 6th level spell, if you're just doing healing, is actually plus an extra 9d8, so it's 20d8 at 6th level. But 6th level, you think, is the highest level spell they have in this game. Right. So 20d8 is as high as it's getting, and it's the most powerful spell level. But also, as well as healing, if it's 4th level or higher, the additional effect you can have instead is bringing a target that has died within 2 rounds back to life. So basically, someone who's mostly dead gets back up and also gets the hit points equivalent to the level spell slot you cast. So if you cast it as a 4th level spell, they're getting 78 plus your wisdom hit point back, and also being brought back to life.
Right.
Now there's things with resolve points that can get you back up and get you stabilized and stuff like that. So, but we haven't even gotten into that, because that's actually getting into the crunch of living and dying and just combat and stuff. So we're just doing an overview. But basically, there are other ways to get back up when you are dying. But this is a real insta-quick plus healing. So it's a nice combo spell there. And casting a spell doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity, which in Pathfinder, big deal. not provoking attacks of opportunity, because man, you can get murderlated by that kind of stuff. So that's what one of the things I wanted to point out. And then there's Mass, which does Mass Cure, which again gets bumped up. Doesn't have the secondary effect because its major thing is healing people in the area. And there's spells. Go ahead.
I really love that aspect of, like, this is a healing spell that you can choose at the more powerful options to either bring someone back, who's just passed, or just double on the healing. I was looking through there's a brief list on let me actually pull that up real quick. And let me screen share that.
Oh yeah, get rid of my screen share. It's fine.
I clicked the button. Why didn't it work? There we go. So like it gives you the brief synopsis on the spells. Like, oh, okay, here you go. Here's for the Mystic class. Here's your zeros, your orisons, if you will, your firsts, your seconds, your thirds. So when I was reading 6th level spell, Mystic Cure, restore 20 D8 hit points plus your wisdom modifier to a living creature, I'm like, holy crap, that's really amazing. And like Nate and I were having a conversation, before we started, and he was reading the spell, and I'm reading this, and he's like, it only says 11 D8. It's like, oh, well, if we read a little bit further, see, that's why there's a difference. So, like, if you actually were to look at the spell page, it actually, if you just read this first part here, 11d8. That it's very important when you're reading a new magic system to get into everything, because one single sentence could be important, like casting this spell doesn't provoke an attack of opportunity. Big difference. So lots of fun, lots of new and great stuff, and having that section that not only says here's the spells, here's a brief one sentence of what they do. I mean, that allowed me to read through and see, like, oh, well, while this mystic, I attributed to a cleric, like, it's not. It's like, oh, I've got flesh to stone, I've got control gravity, I've got planar binding. That doesn't seem to be very cleric-y to me. Telepathic jaunt, true seeing. Like, some of these, to me, they speak far more of a magical nature when I'm used to D&D standards. You've got just a variety of different spells that are completely new. You got control gravity. Now, I believe there's reverse gravity in 5th edition, but this allows you to alter it. So I don't know if it allows you to do more options than what reverse gravity does, because that seems to be a one way direction change. And then once you actually get into the Technomancer spells, as you would expect, you've got things that are far more designed to include technology as part of it. So electricity is a big deal, but you still have things like explosive blast. You've got flight. Great spell in my opinion. Handy Junk Bot creates a temporary robot made of junk to perform computers, engineering, piloting, and sleight of hand tasks. So you could literally make a robot to go pickpocket people. I think that's amazing. Why doesn't our spell thief have this? Really? Microbot assault, cloud of tiny robots harass creatures within it. Recharge replenishes charges in a battery or item capable of holding charges. That's pretty interesting to me. But nice. you've still got your standard spider climb, see invisibility, mirror image, clairvoyance, clairaudience, dispel magic, like flight. These are haste. These spells are all like known throughout the editions of your fantasy role-playing games.
Speak with Dead.
Speak with Dead. But you've got things like, Life Bubble, encase targeted creatures with a shell of tolerable atmosphere. So it's like, you are dying. It's a first level spell. Here you go. Like, that's like, normally that would be a much higher level spell in other editions. But with the theme of Starfinder, like, there's no, you know what, I'll just suffocate. Like, that's death. There's no quick come around for that. So having a first level spell to be able to fix that problem, I think is awesome.
Yeah, and that very much speaks to the, taking, if I had magic, what would I do with it to the future?
Right.
I was like, yeah, I'd make a, boom, spacesuit spell somewhere. It's very utility and also a life-saving spell. So we are rounding out the hour. If anybody has any specific questions that is something Ted and I have read, then we can get into it.
The Steelbot 4.0. Nice, TrueMate.
Yes, I could see that being something to create there. Oh, I am still screen sharing?
Yeah, you are. So
to be able to unscreen share. Did I do it?
Yes, you're back to.
All right, I'm back to normal. Great.
So yes, Taking 20 does have some videos up on Starfinder. He did a week of Starfinder.
Yeah, and I feel like we could get into that same thing and just kind of like jam pack, go through the rule book. But again, we're gonna have to see kind of like filming schedule, and I don't think Dave read the book since he's at GenCon. I would be doing other things if I was at GenCon instead of reading the book. So.
Well, his book is delivered to his house here in Jersey.
There's another reason why he's not reading it.
He's over at GenCon, so and yeah, I mean he's playing in online games and trying to hook up with a variety of different people to get more people to know about Nerdarchy, looking to actually see what kind of fans and stuff are actually there and doing stuff. So like there's lots of people to see and lots of things to do apart from just the normal, hey, I'm a Gen Con. So Starfinder one shot in the future, that's something we could certainly do once we actually know more about the game and actually have the people who are interested and prepared to do it. I know we're our standard Saturday games that we run here at my place, they've been a little off schedule. I actually had to cancel my game this week, or not this week, but this month because of attendance and injuries and what have you. So that was a problem. But we are back on schedule that I believe the first 3 weeks of September, we're actually going to be back to gaming regular. So, yeah, with that, once the Star Wars game that Mike is going to run, who was a player in some of our other games, once that's over, then we'll determine what you guys want to see next. So question from Todd Boyce. From what I've seen online, Starfinder looks just about as rules dense as Pathfinder with the books in hands. How do you find it as heavy as it seems? I would agree that it's definitely as thick. I don't actually have the book here. I have the PDF, and it is 532 pages. So yeah, dense.
But it's really shoving a lot into those pages. You figure it's got the ships, it's got the ship weapons, it's got the combat, it's got the new classes. It's pretty much like a PHB with another book about Starcraft combat on it. So, it makes sense for it to be this large.
And most of what you need to run the game is there. So like you don't need a bazillion things to run a game. So Zareth Gaming says, have you Nerdarchy guys decided on your characters for Starfinder yet?
Yes, I'm going to be an Icon Mystic.
Did you pick a race?
No. So I guess I haven't decided on an important part of that. Maybe the Insectoids?
The Shurins?
Shurins, yeah. Maybe the Shurins. I think that would kind of go along with the Icon aspect for what I'm thinking of for what the character's going to be.
So I want to play a Kasathas, the four-armed guys, or a Lashuntas, and I'm looking at what was the name of that class? The skill heavy guy.
Operative or envoy?
Operative, yeah, operative. And I haven't decided on a theme yet. I have to see how that more pans out. And it's always difficult to be like, I'm gonna make this character before I have a game to put it in. It always is a challenge to me. Last time I did that, it's like, oh, I've got this character that's been sitting out there for years because I never could find a GM to run it. But
so now you're thinking about applying it to more.
Sure made a shock that you're not going with a Mystic.
I know. Well, no, he's shocked. He's surprised sarcastically that I'm going a Mystic. So Drift. What was it? Do Stuff Z. He's asking about the drift. Is it a standard set of days you are out in this dimension, or relative to the distance traveled?
No, it's there's a chart that you roll on based on how far the destination is that you're going.
It sounds like it's not an exact science.
It's really not. The maximum distance is 5d6 days. If you're using a drift engine, most drift engines are going to have that. Are going to half that, so it's 5d6 divided by 2. So you have different things that you can do, and there is rules for I want to travel from here to a planet within the same star system. So there's no point in actually going to the drift. You would just use your standard thrusters. But if you're going to a completely distant star system, you'd be like, oh, well, obviously I'll drift to get there because it's, otherwise it would take me, years on thrusters. So your drift engine is incredibly important.
Yes. Oh, well, yeah. Just considering some of the things they were saying is generational distances where you have to, your grandchildren may get to the place. So yeah, it's pretty, it's like FTL. It's just variable based on the distance, and you're not actually traveling faster than light. You're taking a shortcut through space.
Well, Jake is attempting to play in a Starfinder one shot tonight. So, awesome. I'm kind of jealous.
Oh, Android mechanic. That sounds like a cool combo.
I like the androids, and an android mechanic would sound like a lot of fun. And despite the joy of it, I have to avoid going that direction because that's 2 of my 3 active characters at the moment. So it's it's very difficult looking at a very tech heavy game and wanting to stay away from tech
because you do it in other games.
Because I'm doing it in the steampunk game that Dave is running, I'm doing it in the Star Wars game that Mike is running, and I'm getting ready to play another Starfinder game where, or not Starfinder, Star Wars. I actually have to, send my character to the GM so he can be ready for it in the next couple of weeks. But it is sadly that time. I will have to give my fond adieus. I have things ahead of my schedule today. do you wanna hang out with them for a little bit longer, or do you wanna sign off, Nate?
I actually have to get ready to go to my other job.
All right, so then thank you, all of you awesome fans out there for hanging out with us, talking about some Starfinder. I hope that we've given you some information on it that you find enjoyable. Should you desire to get in on any of the Starfinder stuff, there is a link down in the description below to Amazon to get you access to all that cool Starfinder stuff. Pre-order any of the cool stuff that's going to be coming out in the next several months. I will put out there, it is an affiliate link, so you'll get the same great Amazon price, and we get a small smidgen of that. So
you'll be helping Nerdarchy.
Absolutely. So Ben, thank you. I didn't realize I was made of stone, but so until next time, guys, stay nerdy.